new data has shown that international student numbers at many of the UK colleges and universities are falling rapidly, with reports showing that a few institutions might have recorded as much as 80% plunge in international enrollment. Several reasons have been adduced for this, including harsh economic realities in Nigeria, fall of the naira, and stringent visa conditions. Despite this, a number of foreign schools are springing up in Nigeria, targeting children of the elite and offering local alternatives to what is now becoming elusive abroad. What does this trend mean to those who seek foreign education abroad and the general state of private learning in Nigeria? For all of that, we're now being joined by Todd, who's the Director of Education at Charterhouse, Lagos. Good morning, John. Good to have you join us in the studio with us.
Good morning. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm sure that you've been following the news. The BBC also, recently reported on the fact that,
yes,
international enrollment, particularly from Nigeria and a few other countries in the UK, in colleges and universities, is dropping. But then the flip side of it is that a few institutions, schools, colleges in Nigeria are taking advantage of that, and I believe that,
yes,
your school will be part of it, Charterhouse, Lagos. And this one and I were discussing about Charterhouse. She has a bit of experience in the Charterhouse.
Charterhouse was a family school for me. My brother went to Charterhouse. My cousins went to Charterhouse. I want to check something. Charterhouse trivia. Yes. Is this true? Did you guys create football in Charterhouse?
That's the story.
That's the story.
What we know, if you can still go to the original Charterhouse in London, and they claim the offside rule and the throw-in rule were invented at this former monastery. Mm-hmm. They claim they were the last amateur team to win the FA Cup, and they were also at the first ever meeting of the Football Association.
Oh, wow.
So it's a football school. Football is in the blood.
It is.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on this development? Is this good for Charterhouse and a few other schools who are like, because I relate that to what happened to tourism in a few years, particularly during recession. People who normally would travel abroad, Europe, America, etc., who couldn't go in like a few years, diverted, their money to Nigerian, tourism places. Is that a situation that we're also witnessing as far as education is concerned at this time?
Yeah, I think we're seeing in the UK, so there's all sorts of news coming out about universities, layoffs, financial issues. For Nigerians, as you said, you've got the devaluation. But then on top of that, at the school level rather than the tertiary level, you've got huge cost increases. So we've had 20% VAT. We've had an increase in national insurance. We've had an increase in business rate tax and teachers' pensions. So I'm a parent. My youngest is still at high school. And we're seeing huge increases year after year. So suddenly parents are having to swallow all of these extra costs. I think beyond that, COVID has pushed parents away from sending their children abroad. COVID has meant they want their children closer. Mm-hmm. The other very clear piece, the very clear message we get is around values.
Yeah.
The challenge of liberal Western values that I think Nigerian parents feel are actively pushed in Western schools. Now, for us as a school, we look at it and say, you're here in Nigeria. You have to live within the culture. You don't have to agree with it. You have to live within it because this is Nigeria. And we can't say we're going to bring our values to Nigeria. So I think that the important thing for a school is to say we'll bring a curriculum. The values are very country specific. Nigerians are very clear about what they expect. We have no problem with that. So I think underneath it's the financial pressure. That is the key issue. We are seeing more and more parents reverse Japa. They can get the same education here, and there's other schools offering this, but they can get the values. They can get their children educated within their community. And one of the things we looked at if you send your kid abroad at 11, you've seen this with your family, or even 13.
Yeah.
So they go through 7 or 8 years of secondary school. They go then through 3 or 4 years of university. And we're not even addressing the standard of universities. You've almost got to go overseas for a good university. And then that's 9, 10, 11 years. Are they still Nigerian culturally? Where is home and why come back? So the thinking now is, if they're in secondary school here, only 4 years, 3, 4 years abroad for university, they will come back. And yes, this is a school for the elite. There's no question. We hear lots of noise about the stories about the cost.
How expensive you are.
The cost, you get what you pay for at the end of the day. But if those children are here during their formative years within their community, I think those children will come back. And if those children from those families come back, that's a good sign for Nigeria. That's why we talk about a vote of confidence in Nigeria. Because these are the families, the children, the people that can make a difference in the long term.
Definitely. I mean, for us, I think it's half and half. Half are back, half are still there. My brother is very British, polo player.
Yes.
Culturally, my brother and I are very different because I went to school in America.
Right.
However, I want to ask about something, because for me, going to sixth form abroad, the greatest treasure is the friends that I made from all over the world. I always make a joke that I can drop into any country and I'll have a friend there. Is there any way that Charterhouse in Nigeria is going to try and recreate this? Particularly, I would assume you're competing with other international boarding schools across the continent. And so you're trying to, I'm assuming, get children from different African countries?
Well, it's interesting because all we hear is there is nothing like this in West Africa. So we are the first British independent school in sub-Saharan Africa. So if you go to North Africa, there are British schools. If you go to South Africa or Southern Africa, there's a tradition. East Africa, again, there's a tradition, but there is nothing here. So already we have students coming from Ghana. We have inquiries from as far away as Rwanda. We have people coming back from the US, from the UK. So already we're starting to create that network opportunity. It's a boarding school. So yes, I think in the longer term, you're going to see a resurgence of that tradition. And that I think is very much a thing that is part of Nigerian tradition. There were a whole load of successful boys' schools and girls' boarding schools. And I think that's kind of gone away a little bit, which is very sad. This is now the opportunity to bring it back, to make those long-term network connections.
Okay, let's get into, I mean, you rightly said that this is an elite school. There has been conversation around the cost, the pricing, but it is what it is.
Yes.
And this is also legacy. So the people coming to the school are aware of what they're paying for and what they're getting in return. But is there an indirect benefit, say, for instance, for, say, teacher trainings or scholarship programs where families who may not have the capacity to afford the fees for the school, but also have children who are gifted in some way or, are quite smart, may have opportunities to attend teachers as well? Would there be some type of teacher training? Because you talked about cross-cultural pollination. Sure. So maybe bringing in some of the culture that you have in Charterhouse London to the teacher space in Nigeria.
Yes. So let me hit on the fees straight away as well. Compared to the UK, Charterhouse in the UK, we're talking £60,000. My youngest is at a London day school, £30,000. Charterhouse Lagos, full boarding, 1 year, 15,000 equivalent. Of course, it's in Naira. So the cost difference is huge if you compare it to an overseas school. But yes, absolutely, we have to make a difference here within Nigeria. So we've invested hugely in teacher training with our own team already. I have a principal whose sole job is training. And we have to get away from thinking schools only do teacher training. Most of my staff are not teachers. So we're also training our engineers. We're training our dining room staff. We're training our finance, HR. Everybody gets trained. I think a mistake a lot of schools make, they only train teachers. So we're training everybody, we're raising everybody up. For quite a few of our contractors, we require them to bring in people from the local community. And of course, when they come to us, they have to do training. So there's both a training and an economic benefit within our local community specifically. We'll also be launching later this year our Festival of Education, quite small to start with and online, but that's our initial reach out to the wider community. We are talking very closely with the Ministry of Education, great support from Lagos State Government, and we want to reach out to try and build Nigerian schools, to build Nigerian teachers, scholarships as well. Yes, you've mentioned that. Yes, they will come. I'm not going to give precise dates and times. We're in our first year, so we need a little bit more time to settle down, but scholarships will absolutely come, and our owners, our founders are absolutely committed to giving scholarships to worthy Nigerian students. Our thinking about scholarships, though, is not just secondary school. Why give them a world-class education in secondary school and then stop there? So our thinking is that will need to be extended to university, international university education. So we will take them through secondary, we will then take them overseas through university education as well. And then they will come back here and make a difference.
All right, two quick things, John. First will be the question of curriculum. A lot of people think, oh, if I send my kids to a primary or secondary school that is British education here, it's like a mini London in Nigeria, and that the Nigerian values that the parent will expect will be inculcated in the world might not be adequate. Talk to us a bit about the sort of curriculum that your school offers. And then I believe that later this year, the secondary school component will join.
Yes.
Will that be coming because of the success that the primary school has recorded? We therefore will suggest that this is a fertile ground for this sort of educational enterprise. Or it's basically to speak to what you said earlier about train them at their formative years in Nigeria before you start considering sending kids abroad.
Yeah. Well, I think almost we can separate two things there. Curriculum, this is the knowledge, the skills, the understanding. On top of that, we have values. One of our values is courtesy, which is a quintessentially Nigerian value. So I worked here before, when was that? About 20 years ago. And now I've come back, and then you have to remember, I have to greet everybody. Now, if I walk around the streets in London and I greet somebody, it's like I've said something horrible to them. But courtesy, respect, excellence. So whatever curriculum we use, and we use a British curriculum, within that we focus on specific values that we think are appropriate for Nigeria. And courtesy is a key one for us. But we also want these children to understand where they're from. And we run a program called Nigerian and African Studies. And what that does is focus on, obviously, things like geography, language, culture. It gives them a grounding in where they are.
A bit of history, maybe?
Absolutely. So all of these different components to try and get these children to understand where am I and who am I. One of the problems of international students is they don't really know where they're from. And if you send a child to an international school, it may be in Nigeria, but they don't really know because they're not taught anything about Nigeria. So absolutely we want to teach them about the country they're from or simply the country they live in. And then, yes, you mentioned secondary school. We'd always planned to open secondary school. It's part of our whole building schedule. We've had an absolutely tremendous response from parents across the board. So we have extended the number of classes that we're opening next year. We weren't going to open all of these. So many parents have come to us and said, we want these classes to open. We've done that. Some have wanted even more classes. We've had to say no. The important thing for us is get it right. We don't want to experiment on children. We don't want to do last-minute additions or changes. We want to get it absolutely right, particularly for secondary school, particularly for exam classes. These children get one chance.
Yes. So is this going to be IGCSEs?
So IGCSE will come in 2026,
Okay.
along with A-levels.
Okay. Oh, as well as A-levels?
Yes. So we'll start year 10, what we call year 10 and year 12. Those are 2-year programs. So this year we'll be opening year 7, year 8, year 9. So that's 11 to 14-year-olds.
Okay.
And for boarding school.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for joining us.
My pleasure.
Thank you, John. Thank you.